You know, sometimes you come across something that looks, well, incredibly boring on the surface, but turns out to be anything but. Today, we're diving into one of those things, an Indian safety standard for excavation from 1992. Now, I know what you're thinking, a safety manual about digging? But trust me on this one, this document is a wild rabbit hole of philosophy, life-or-death engineering, and honestly, a bit of mystery.
So right on the very first page, before you even get to a single rule or regulation, you see this, a quote from a workers' union, the right to information, the right to live. I mean, think about that for a second. Why on earth would a construction code start with a statement that sounds like it belongs in a human rights charter? That's our first clue that this is way more than just your average rulebook.
And then, as you dig deeper, no pun intended, you find these strange, official-looking stamps with Latin phrases on them. One of them, brutum fulmen, translates to an empty threat. Another says, ignorantia juris non excusat, which means ignorance of the law is no excuse. What is going on here? This feels less like an engineering spec and more like something out of a courtroom drama.
Okay, so what is this thing? Officially, it's called IS 3764. And yeah, on the surface, it's a safety code. But as we're already seeing, it's wrapped in all these layers of mystery and philosophy. So let's peel them back and figure out what's really going on.
But before we can get to philosophy, we have to understand the very real, very raw danger that made this document necessary in the first place. Because it turns out, just digging a hole in the ground is one of the most deceptively hazardous jobs a person can do. The document itself doesn't pull any punches. The foreword calls excavation work a major hazard when there's insufficient attention to safety. And we're not talking about twisted ankles or minor cuts here. We're talking about catastrophic accidents that happen in the blink of an eye when literally tons of earth decide to move.
And the code explains exactly why the risks have shot up. You've got construction moving faster than ever before, giant machines shaking the ground, and a mix of highly skilled veterans and brand new workers all on the same site. It's a perfect storm. And as the document says, the hazards have increased considerably. The old ways just weren't cutting it anymore.
So here's the crucial question. When does a simple ditch become a genuine threat? Well, the standard draws a very clear line in the sand, or, the soil. 1.5 meters. That's about 5 feet deep. The moment a trench goes past that mark, everything changes. You've officially entered a regulated danger zone, and the entire safety code we're talking about suddenly kicks into high gear.
And IS 3764 is the answer to that danger. It's the playbook, the rule book, designed for one reason, to stop the ground itself from becoming a trap.
And what I find so interesting is the stated goal. It's not just about preventing accidents or punishing companies. The purpose is also to bring confidence to the workmen. Think about that. The idea is that a worker who feels safe isn't just protected, they're empowered. They can focus on their job without fear. It's so easy to look at a document like this and just see bureaucracy, right? More red tape. But when you really understand the life and death stakes, you see it for what it is. It's not red tape, it's a lifeline. It's a comprehensive playbook for survival, written to make sure that every single person who goes down into a trench comes back out.
Okay, so let's dive in and see how you actually do it. What do these life-saving rules look like in practice? Well, the core idea is pretty simple. You have to actively fight back against the crushing pressure of the earth.
The main technique is called shoring. It sounds technical, but the concept is really straightforward. You're basically building a protective cage inside the trench to physically hold the walls back. You've got vertical boards, horizontal beams, and cross braces. Together, they create a shield that stops the ground from caving in.
And here's where you start to see the real intelligence of the code. For stable, hard-packed soil, look at the table. The vertical boards, the sheathing, can be spaced pretty far apart, up to 1.5 meters. The thinking is that the earth is mostly holding itself up, and the shoring is just there as an extra precaution.
But now, check out the rules for loose or soft soil. That spacing completely changes to width of member. That's a technical way of saying the boards have to be jammed right up against each other, forming a solid, continuous wall. The code adapts to the danger. It's a dynamic system, not some rigid one-size-fits-all rule. It's actually brilliant.
The code also makes it clear that safety is a two-way street. It puts direct responsibility on the workers, too. They have to use their safety gear, follow directions, and, this is the crucial part, they are explicitly empowered to speak up if something feels unsafe.
It's a formal acknowledgement that the person with their boots on the ground knows the real risks better than anyone.
And they thought of everything. It goes way beyond just cave-ins. The standard covers all the other hidden threats. What happens if you accidentally hit an underground power line? What about keeping heavy machinery far enough away from the edge? They even have rules for testing the air for deadly gases, and for dealing with snakes, vermin, and making sure you don't destabilize the buildings next door. It's a true 360-degree view of safety.
So when you put all of it together, the deep philosophy, the detailed engineering, the personal responsibility, you start to see that this document isn't just a document at all. It actually creates something real, powerful, and totally invisible that exists on every safe construction site.
And this brings us right back to that other quote from the first page. Knowledge is such a treasure which cannot be stolen. This is it. This is the whole point. The document itself is the treasure. It's all the hard-won, often painful experience from past accidents, distilled into a form that can be shared and preserved.
And that's why this matters. This standard is not just paper. It is an invisible shield. Every rule about how far apart to place a support beam or the simple act of wearing a helmet is one small part of this massive system of protection. It's a shield built not out of steel, but out of knowledge. It's a promise from society to its workers that says, we've learned from the past, and we're going to use that knowledge to keep you safe.
And that really leaves us with one final big question. This document is a perfect example of how a community can capture its collective wisdom to save lives. It makes you wonder, what other dangers do we all face? And what other hard-won knowledge, what other treasures do we have that we could be turning into our own invisible shields?